Thank you, Chairman Latta, for holding this important legislative hearing. I want to thank the witnesses on our second panel for giving us your expertise on this important subject. I mentioned in the first panel how critical it is to utilize all energy resources to meet our growing energy needs. We need to make sure we have more power on the grid, and certainly not less. Natural gas is key in that building up our natural gas pipeline infrastructure is critical. Mrs. Andrusak, in previous hearings the subcommittee held this year, we heard concerns of natural gas availability for energy demand growth given pipeline infrastructure constraints. What are some of the biggest statutory hurdles to interstate pipeline development?
So the biggest hurdles we face are securing all of the necessary permits from state and additional agencies. That goes along with the overall FERC certification process. So it's securing those, and then it's the fact that we face legal challenges, litigation at every stage of the permitting process.
Mr. Sensler, in your testimony, you mentioned how market signals incentivize generational development. However, in regions like the Northeast that lack critical gas transmission infrastructure, is the market able to even respond to those supply demands due to a lack of pipelines?
Representative, thanks for the question. The short answer is yes, but the longer answer is it's very difficult. So if you're not able to access the resource that you think you need, you're forced to look at other alternatives. And the issue of affordability or cost effectiveness has been raised a number of times today, and that does have an impact on the ultimate cost that consumers pay. And that's true, again, whether it's a restructured market or it's a vertically integrated portion of the country, that if you have a restricted access to the commodity that is the least expensive, most viable alternative to produce electricity at the time and for the foreseeable future, yes, that becomes a problem for planning and for investment decisions because you need the appropriate market signals in order to drive that 30 or 40-year investment.
Would additional pipeline capacity lower prices for consumers during the peak seasons in these tight markets? Can you explain how that would be done?
Sure, thank you for the question. I think it's clear that if there is a greater access to the commodity, which is typically available at lower cost, when you look at where the constraints in supply are, specifically in Northeast Pennsylvania, there remains a large volume of gas that could find a home in the Northeast. That would allow generators who utilize that resource, as well as other customers on the pipeline system, to be able to have lower cost of gas, which means that in turn reduces overall power prices, which then goes into your ultimate retail bill at a lower rate than it would if you've got higher prices that you're having to address. So it's kind of a linear function of the access and the price.
Plus, it burns 42% cleaner, which is a big reason why we've reduced our carbon footprint. Mr. Matheson, you mentioned in your testimony the need for reliable baseload power to meet the growing energy demand. Plans to take away natural gas and coal, I believe, will harm availability. Can you share with the characteristics of natural gas and coal, or why the characteristics are so critical to reliability and what the harms would be to having some of this generation retire?
Well, I think it's in the term of dispatchable, or the term I like to say is always available. It works great in a portfolio. If you're going to have renewables, having it anchored by always available makes the value of the renewables more so as well. And it could be natural gas, it could be coal, but it could be nuclear, and it could be hydro. But they're always available. That's key in terms of maintaining reliability over a 24/7, 365 calendar. Look, for 340 days of the year, this country's got plenty of capacity. It's those 25, right?
Right.
And you can take a look at the great example, I'll give you one with hydro in the Pacific Northwest, where 2 Januaries ago we had record cold, and the wind production went from over 100 gigawatts down to nothing. And the hydroelectric dams out there in the Pacific Northwest kept the heat on in bitter cold for hundreds of thousands of people. So having that always available generation matters in terms of those crisis situations.
Good, thank you. Yes, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.